What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Pack-A-Day Live, presented by Luigi's Pizza. I am excited because I am getting some cheese fries from Luigi's Pizza Parlor tonight. We're going to have a friend's little party at a friend's house of ours here in Green Bay. Heading to that. And yes, you can better believe I'm bringing some Luigi's cheese fries with me. So appreciate Luigi's for sponsoring today's show. You can find them at luigispizza.com and on social media at Luigi's Pizza. I'm already thinking about that, but we've got some breaking news to discuss as Tom Pelissero and I think Adam Schefter had it first, Rob Domofsky as well, have all tweeted out, and it's been now retweeted by pretty much everybody. Jordan Love officially out for tomorrow. Packers-Ravens, Saturday Night Football. Malik Willis is expected to start. Apparently the injury and illness is good enough for Malik Willis to be able to play. Clayton Thune will be the backup, which means they will have to elevate him tomorrow. My guess is we're going to get some roster gymnastics either here in just a moment or tomorrow. I suppose they went with two tight ends last week, so they could theoretically go with two tight ends this week with Josh Wiley instead of John Fitzpatrick. But you would think that they're going to call up Jamin Johnson for Christian Welch, who's out in this game. They surely will call up Clayton Thune to be the backup quarterback. And then after that, you would think that they'd want the third tight end. But again, they went with two last week, so that's not a guarantee by any way, shape, or form. So again, Packers updated it just right now. From the Packers official account, Jordan Love has been downgraded to out. So he has gone from questionable to out. And they did one roster move. Let's see. Aaron Banks and Savion Williams have both been downgraded to questionable due to illness. So that illness is going through the locker room. And there's your big update. No, not big update. But there's your one roster gymnastics. Christian Welch is going on IR. So that would allow them to sign potentially Jamin Johnson for tomorrow, would be my guess, to fill his spot, and then activate Clayton Thune and activate Clayton Thune activated, and then a tight end activated as well. The one other thing you have to keep an eye on, though, is offensive line. There could need to be some additional offensive line gymnastics going on as well. Zach Thomas, questionable, had not practiced all week. My guess is he probably doesn't go. Remember, Sean Ryan and now Aaron Banks too, both fighting this illness. If they can't go, if either of them, they could potentially have more issues. And the other thing too that we have to be very cognizant of at this point is this illness continues to spread through the Packers locker room. I don't know if this is what's going through the locker room, but I know in the Green Bay area, the norovirus seems to be going around pretty aggressively. So I'm trying to avoid it as best as I can as well. But if that's something that's shooting through the locker room, no matter what the injury report says today, there could be a whole new slew of injuries, or I should say illnesses tomorrow with that thing going around as well. So a lot of stuff could happen in the next 24 hours, but we now know, again, Jordan Love out, Christian Welch placed on injured reserve, Aaron Banks and Savion Williams downgraded to questionable with an illness. So lots to sort through there. Again, I think we'll see Jamin Johnson signed for Christian Welch. I think Clayton Thune obviously will be elevated tomorrow, and then I would assume a tight end would be elevated. But keep an eye on offensive line. If they need an offensive lineman, I would think that Bohanna or Stackhouse would probably be the player to get cut if they had to actually release a player tomorrow, unless there's another player that they could place on IR somehow. But I don't think that there would be at this point in time. So lots again to sort out tomorrow. We'll have it for you on tomorrow's live pregame show to cover all of those inactives and things like that as best we can. All right, we'll get to super chats first, and then I'll get to as many questions as I can. I'll be here till about 4 p.m. Central Time. So again, appreciate you guys joining me today. All right, Andy, with Dobbs gone after this season, do you think Golden should get half of his snaps and let him build more chemistry with Love for next year? No, I think you worry about next year, Dakota, and I think you worry about the here and now. And if you feel like Romeo Dobbs gives you the better opportunity, or, if you want him out there, I totally understand that. Right now, this team is trying to fight, obviously for a division title right now, and they're trying to win as many games as they can, or at least for now. And then once they get in the playoffs. So I don't think you allow Romeo Dobbs, pending exit, to play any sort of calculus into how you're thinking right now. And I think you let that stuff play out naturally. And Matthew Golden will have a ton of opportunities this offseason and early next year to get heavily involved in the offense. And if and when Romeo does leave, you're still going to have a pretty crowded room. Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, Savion Williams, etc. But Matthew Golden should get more opportunities if and when Romeo Dobbs does leave next year. The man 5705. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. I hope Malik gets a Justin Fields like contract or greater next year if he leaves. And how do you feel about Tyler Huntley as a potential backup? Well, first of all, I need to see where Huntley's at from a contract standpoint. I'm assuming he's a free agent. They just picked him up this year. I think it was a 1-year deal. It was. So he will be a free agent. My honest answer, the man, is that I would need to go and watch his tape a little bit closer. Watched a little bit this week ahead of the Packers game. Obviously, remember that game he had against the Packers when they put up 30 points previously, and we'll see what he can do tomorrow. On the surface, I would say I like where your head is at from a theoretical standpoint. They're probably not going to want to spend an exorbitant draft choice on quarterback. They're probably not going to want to give a big free agent contract. And Huntley has the experience as a backup, as a reputable backup in this league. Not only that, but he would seem to be able to kind of run the offense the way that Malik Willis did to some extent. And I think you could probably have success with it. So if you could get him on a, 1 year, $4 to $5 million deal, I think that type of deal could make sense. But again, my honest answer is I'd have to go and watch him just a little bit closer before I'd have a real sound take on that. But again, I kind of like where your head's at overall. The love we got against the New York Giants and the Steelers in first half of Denver is the best I've seen him play. How does this team get that version of him coming off 2 weeks of rest? Well, first of all, we don't know for sure what next week is going to bring. So let's not fast forward too quickly. Next week, they could still have plenty to play for. If Green Bay beats Baltimore, curious if that line moved at all with the love news, by the way. It was 4.5 just a little bit ago for Green Bay. It's now 3.5. So only moved down a point so far. But yeah, so if Green Bay wins this and Chicago loses to San Fran, Green Bay will be playing to win next week against Minnesota with Jordan Love, assuming that his, gets through concussion protocol next week, which if he was close this week, you would assume he'll be good to go next week. But even if not, even if they don't have anything to play for, I would be willing to bet you they get him a quarter of work or something like that, just to throw a little bit before going right into a wild card game. But I have no concern about Jordan, even if he doesn't play this week or next week, to go into a wild card game and to perform very, very well, especially if it's going against Chicago, which there's a good opportunity that it is. Chicago doesn't have that pressure up front. Their defensive line's been really bad. Their secondary's been shaky. Jordan will be able to kind of take care of business against that sort of defense and then continue to hopefully play like that through the rest of the playoffs if they can get through that first game. But no real concern there. But I would guess Jordan gets some time next week, almost no matter what, assuming, again, he clears concussion protocol and could be playing that full game if the Packers actually have a chance to win the North next week. Steven, thanks so much. Or Steve, I should say. Holiday cheers to all. This game could be ugly. We'll see. You know what? I expect both of these teams to be able to kind of find a little bit of a groove. These are two veteran backup quarterbacks that have had success in this league. It's not going to probably be the most aesthetically pleasing. It's probably not going to be the sexiest game, but I bet both of these teams find ways to put up points, and I bet it's still semi-entertaining. I'm sure it's not what the NFL wanted. In fact, I bet if they could have just a simple change, I bet they wish they could switch the games tomorrow so that the Packers would be the opener and be playing at 3:30 and Texans Chargers would be the primetime game. Because I don't think they wanted, Tyler Huntley versus Malik Willis as the game. I think they would have much preferred Lamar Jackson and Jordan Love. And I think, they were probably expecting the Steelers to lose to the Lions to beat the Vikings, and this game to have real big time playoff implications where the Ravens had every opportunity to win the North. The Packers needed this game to get into the playoffs, and that was going to be a big time game, right? Now the Ravens are all but out of it. The Packers are obviously in it. And now you have no Jordan Love, likely no Lamar Jackson, and it definitely has a different connotation. So I'm sure the NFL is bummed, but they'll get by. And it should, I think, still be a pretty entertaining game. And I think both these quarterbacks will come through and play some pretty good football. All right, Aiden, going to my first Packer game tomorrow. What should I be looking out for doing? Man, just enjoying the experience and the atmosphere. There's nothing like being at Lambeau Field, especially a night game as well. I'm bummed for you that you don't get to see Jordan Love play, but that place is magical every single time. So just depends what you want to do beforehand. Whether you want to stop, at Titletown District and kind of walking around there, getting a drink or, getting some food, etc. You could stop in Kroll's. You could stop in, Hinterland. You could go on the opposite side, go to somewhere like the Distillery where there's always a ton of room in there. Do something like that. And then, walk around the stadium, get the vibe, get the atmosphere. go into the atrium, find your seats, go through the tunnel, and just have that magical experience. So hopefully the Packers can pick up a win for you, Aiden, but just enjoy the experience and let the magic of Lambeau Field take over. What the heck happened to Rashawn Gary? Did he get his money and just clock out? I was so excited for him. Well, Jay Peterson, I think there's a variety of different things. I think the first thing is that he had the ACL injury, and I think that he wasn't ever quite the same after it. Now, what I talked to Mike Wall about this is like those first 5-6 games back from the ACL, he looked really good. I was really impressed with how he looked. And then he seemed to hit a wall, especially in the second half of that year, and really couldn't do anything. And I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. You spend your entire offseason just rehabbing, you get back, and then you play in games and you feel good. And then at some point you've been going for like a year plus straight, and your body probably just is like, dude, I need a break. And I could understand it, right? But then he comes back the following year, and really ever since, and just hasn't been the same, just hasn't been able to get the same level of productivity, pressure, etc. And then you finally get, you can even look back at last year, and he was double teamed and chipped quite a bit. And you can understand, like, yeah, that's a tough scene. Like, it's tough to kind of consistently get pressure when you're that guy, when you're the one that's getting, all hands on deck from the other team. And then you get into this year, you're like, oh my God, this is perfect. Now Rashawn gets one-on-ones. Mike is going to be taking all the pressure and all the double teams, the chips, the triple teams, etc. And Rashawn's going to be able to tear it up as defensive end number 2. And he doesn't. So I think the ACL is part one. I think part two is, I do think when Jeff Hafley came in, there were two big issues with Rashawn. Even when he was playing really good football, even prior to the ACL, there were two big issues. Number one, just in general, he was not a great run defender. And number two, he would over pursue a lot. So meaning that he would get up the field and open up either running lanes or like an opportunity for the quarterback to step outside and get up, and he would just kind of get sent around the bend. He would get a few more pressures that way and maybe even a couple more sacks. But on all the plays that he didn't get a pressure or a sack, the quarterback has now an avenue to step up, get it, get outside, and it really just kind of breaks down your defense to a real extent. So Jeff Hafley comes in, and you can tell, go back to last year. Remember, 2023, the Packers were ridiculously bad in run defense. And you could tell basically same, for the most part, same cast, couple upgrades here and there, but a very similar cast, I'll put it that way. And in 2024, the Packers became one of the better run defense teams in the NFL. And you could tell everyone had a say in that, or like had a piece of that. And Rashawn Gary, I think, bulked up a little bit. And I think he put on a little weight. And I think he now was able to set the edge better. And he stopped over pursuing. He played what I would argue is like a better overall, a better brand of football is maybe the wrong way to put it, but like a more honorable brand of football, or maybe you're not getting as many pressures, but you're playing it the right way. You're not opening up these sort of weaknesses in your defense by maybe going big game hunting a little bit more. The trade-off to that was, he wasn't getting to the quarterback as much, but you could sort of write it off a little bit in 24 because he was getting chipped and double teamed quite a bit. In 2025, though, you now have this player, especially when Micah was healthy and active, that was still playing honorable. The run defense, as I've talked about, as Jeff Hafley's talked about, as Mike Wallace talked about, as others have talked about, the run defense is pretty damn good from Rashawn. Like, you really don't have any concerns there, and he really has done a better job than that. He's a very good run defensive end. He's not going around the bend and again, maybe going big game hunting, or maybe playing a more dishonorable brand of football to try to get all those plays. And he is kind of staying his alley a little bit more, and his gap a little bit more, and his lane a little bit more. But he has not found the ability within that to get off of blocks. He doesn't seem to have the same explosive juice getting to the quarterback and closing to the quarterback. And where I think his best move is at speed to power and getting up under the defensive end, he just hasn't done a good job of that. And, just doesn't seem to be something that he wants to do regularly. And because of that, you end up with a defensive end who doesn't have the same juice and explosiveness, doesn't have that closing burst to the quarterback, is playing better against the run, is not opening up those alleyways to rush as often, but just isn't getting to the quarterback as much as well. So there are aspects of his game that have become better, including run defense and including, again, kind of usually keeping things in front of him. But there are aspects of just his pure pass rush where he's just not having the impact that you would want. So, I mean, Jeff Hafley went to bat for him pretty over the top a couple weeks ago. What I will say is publicly, there is yet to be a player that Jeff Hafley hasn't gone to bat for almost over the top, right? He is high praise for pretty much everyone. Keyshawn Nixon, Rashawn Gary, LVN, we can go on and on. He's given high praise to literally almost everyone. So you almost have to start taking that a little bit with a grain of salt. And I just think, again, good, solid player. Sure. To me, he's like the 6th or 7th best defender on the team. And I think people may not want to hear that. At least I'll see where I have him graded after this week. He is let's see. He's at 1-6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's my 7th highest graded player on defense. And for PFF, has him as their 8th, but really 7th because Hopper doesn't play enough to qualify for that. So PFF has him as their 7th highest graded defender. I have him as my 7th highest graded defender. So he's the 7th best defender on the team. I mean, by at least my account and PFF's account. Slightly different order between PFF and I, but we both have him as the 7th best defender. So this idea that he's bad or he's not helping the team or anything like that is, I would say, and I think PFF would say as well, is just, I think the Packers would say as well, is wrong. Where it gets more complicated is you're paying him as one of the highest paid players on the team. And he was obviously a top 15 pick and you gave him a huge contract and he's expected to be your 2nd, 3rd, 4th best defender, probably 2nd or 3rd best defender on the team. And he's not. He's clearly not. So he's playing like somebody that you would pay, I don't know, somewhere between 5 to 10 million per year. And you're paying him a ton more than that. So that's where, again, I think it's a more nuanced conversation. I've talked about this quite a bit. Solid run defender, keeping things in front of him, not getting into the quarterback a ton, not getting sacks, not getting tackles for loss or impact plays. 7th best defender gets paid way more than that. That's your nuanced conversation on Rashawn Gary in a very long-winded way. Hope you had a good Christmas, Andy. How many snaps should we expect Colin Oliver to take? I would be willing to bet he's not active tomorrow. So I'm going to go goose egg for Colin Oliver. I would be willing to bet he is not active for this one. Jonathan, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that, my friend. If the Packers do well in the playoffs, what are your predictions for what they did well? On the contrary, if they don't have a good run, what do you predict to be their downfall? Yeah, if they do well, they somehow figured out a way to generate a pass rush with 4 players. LVN, Rashawn Gary, Carl Brooks, Kingsley Enagbare. That group of players probably stepped up in a pretty significant way, in a way that we haven't really seen them do collectively as a group of 4. I think those four are going to have to be the big ones. On offense, the offensive line protected Jordan throughout the playoffs. Run blocking could be hit or miss, but they protected Jordan and Jordan got hot. And Jordan just played his best brand of football for 4 consecutive games. So Jordan Love looks great with a offensive line that's protecting the hell out of him and a defensive front 4 that all of a sudden starts getting pressure at a level that we quite frankly haven't seen from them, or at least not recently. That's what makes it good. If they do not play well, I mean, there's a variety of things, turnovers, self-inflicted mistakes like we've seen all season, but the offensive line just kind of collapsing and the defensive line not getting pressure with their front 4 would be the 2 most obvious answers to me. Offensive line has shown signs of weakness all over the tape this season, and it just hasn't been good enough. And usually that's in and of itself, even if you had Micah, even if you had everybody, is potentially catastrophic. That would be my biggest guess. I've talked about it since about week 3. And the defensive line without Micah just not being able to get pressure. I think, again, you win in the trenches. And if you can't get there with 4 And if you on your offensive line can't protect the opposing team's front four, you're just in for a really long, day. And you could have multiple games like that if they get that far. So I think that would probably be their biggest Achilles heels. And if we made a Super Bowl run, what one player would you expect to step up the most besides Jordan? For me, it's Watson. Yeah. I think it's going to have to be a defensive lineman. It's going to have to be a Rashawn Gary, an LVN, a Kingsley Enagbare, something where like all of a sudden somebody just gets on a heater and is getting like a sack and a half per game for 4 games in a row. Like just gets hot, 5-6 pressures per game. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we have to double team LVN now, or we have to double team this person. I think that would probably be my biggest thing where they could potentially have a chance at this would be if one of those defensive linemen got hot. Watson's a good answer though too. Hope you and the family had a wonderful Christmas. Going to suck to lose Malik this offseason. I live down here in Miami, and it seems like the Dolphins would be a good spot for him. Yeah, there's just not many great quarterback options this offseason. The draft class is going to have, did Moore from Oregon. I haven't followed it close enough, but I don't think he's decided one way or the other yet. But yeah, that would be potentially one. And then, if they get if the Oregon kid goes, then they have 2. It's obviously they have Mendoza, and then the Oregon kid would be the second one. There's not a ton in the draft class after that. Daniel Jones is probably not going anywhere, but also coming off the huge injury. And then it's just Kyler Murray probably is available. Malik Willis. There's just not a ton that gets you super excited. Geno Smith maybe. So you're gonna have to kind of make those decisions. But Malik Willis, because of that, could be in high demand, which is what Dan Graziano of ESPN said the other day as well. Will be interesting to see how we handle the backup quarterback spot this offseason. Big time. The last time, to be fair, that they were in this position, they went with Sean Clifford, basically. They drafted a quarterback in the 6th round. They had to overdraft him. They didn't have the money to spend, so they didn't go out and get a big time backup. And they drafted somebody in the 6th round and said, "You're the backup." Hopefully they have a little bit of a better plan, or they draft a little bit of a better 6th round quarterback, but we'll have to see how they kind of go about doing this. The question is way late, but when Kraft went down, did they pick another captain on offense? That's a good question, Dakota. I have not paid attention to that at all. My guess is no, but I don't know that for sure. I haven't looked at it. How surprised were I that the Vikings won yesterday? I'm pretty freaking surprised. I mean, the Lions just, I don't think I've ever seen that group of players look that bad on offense. And kudos to the Vikings defense, and what they were able to accomplish. I mean, Harrison Smith looked like he was in his prime yesterday. Van Ginkel was really good. I mean, what Flores was doing to consistently rattle Jared Goff was pretty freaking crazy, but stopped the run really well. Like it was impressive. And with no offense basically whatsoever, Minnesota pulled that off. So I was surprised. Nothing surprises me in this NFL season, which is again why I'm super pumped for the playoffs, because I think any game could go any way. It's just flip a coin every single time. But yeah, I was surprised. And hey, like I said on the show today, I'll take the Lions being eliminated from the playoffs, the Packers clinching a playoff berth, and the Vikings, I think, going from 13th to 17th, was it? It was. Yeah, 13th to 17th in the draft right now. So they go down about 4 or 5 spots in the draft order, just a win all the way around for Green Bay. So appreciate you, Minnesota, for a day only. We appreciate you. Yeah, I don't think that this is health preservation mode, Malcolm. This to me has everything to do with concussion protocol. If Jordan is cleared, they play him. He was not cleared, and so they don't get to play him. I think it's honestly as simple as that. We'll see if they start shutting down other players, but I really don't expect that to be the case. So I don't think this is preservation mode yet, but maybe we'll get a better feel in the next 24 hours or so for how Green Bay handles their inactives. And all of a sudden we see somebody like Josh Jacobs inactive, who wasn't even on the injury report. Well, that's going to tell you quite a bit. But I just think with the injuries and illness that they have, that they're not going to be able to be, kind of choosy with how they do this. They're going to have enough injuries as it is to fill their inactive list and illnesses to fill their inactive list. I don't think this is going to be preservation mode for Green Bay, but we'll see. Cheers, cheeseheads, and happy holidays. Appreciate you, Steve. No, there's no pizza problem. It's where I get my superpowers from, Nick. No problem at all. I appreciate Luigi's and helping me with my good. It's a good problem to have, not a bad problem. Last game for Malik in green and gold. Well, maybe hopefully last game starting, but he'll be the backup next week. Could start next week depending on the scenario. Well, we talked about it. I think Love will play a little bit no matter what, but could get playing time next week depending on what the scenario is. And yeah, we'll certainly still be active in the playoff games as well. Hopefully multiple playoff games. I know Flynn did more than Malik did in the Packers career, but I'd put him second, at least in my lifetime, in terms of true backup Packers quarterback, 7th rounder, well spent. Yeah, he's been great. You can argue, obviously, like, they had Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Brooks, Mark Brunell, Ty Detmer, Matt Hasselbeck. There were other quarterbacks that may have gone on to have better, careers afterward, but for like just their time, for what they did as a backup quarterback in Green Bay in my lifetime, yeah, you're probably, it's probably Flynn and Malik would be the two, I would say. Makes sense to sit Love now since we clinched the playoffs. I bet at the Lions at 1 Love would. I disagree. I could easily be wrong. I don't have any inside information on this to be clear, but I think this is true. Just concussion protocol. Did he clear? Did he not? I think he didn't, and therefore he's not playing. I think he would have if he was healthy in this game, even if he cleared protocol. Wash your hands, wash your butts. It's that time of year, and it is apparently going through Green Bay big time. Of course, me and my dad are driving up from Ohio to watch the game this weekend. Listen, I know it sucks that Love is out. No Lamar Jackson. It doesn't have that big fight feel to it anymore. The Packers have clinched. The Ravens are basically dead, but it's Lambeau Field. It's Saturday Night Football. It's still going to be epic. I wouldn't get too disappointed. I still think Green Bay can pick up a big win, and this has the ability to be a fun game for the Packers. So still enjoy it, Landon. I know I will enjoy being there tomorrow still. So just try to enjoy the heck out of it as much as you can. Marina, Merry Christmas to you as well. What a barrage of injuries and now this illness. What a nightmare. My question, not for firing Matt, but wonder what you think about the mistakes and lack of discipline in coaching. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, Marina. But what I will say is I do think that there has been enough of a through line now with these kind of big mistakes in some key moments and key games, not just this year, but in previous Matt LaFleur, seasons as well, that it's a little bit of a dark cloud that kind of circles. And if all of a sudden, again, what you start putting in the ether is if all of a sudden you get to a playoff game this year and Green Bay has the lead and another huge self-inflicted error costs them the game, it's just like this snowball that continues to avalanche downhill, right? And now everyone's like, well, this is a major problem. It's Matt LaFleur. It's et cetera, right? So you've kind of opened Pandora's box with that stuff because of how much of this stuff. I think honestly, as much as maybe people don't want to hear this, it's not like it's the same player making the same mistakes over and over and over. Sometimes, Keyshawn Nixon obviously having a really rough game and things like that. That's some stuff that we've seen rear its ugly head from time to time. But Dobbs dropping an onside kick recovery, as Rich Bisaccia has said earlier this week, they've been 10 for 10 in onside kick recoveries prior to that point. And like Dobbs and the coaching staff that per Romeo Dobbs have repped that play throughout the week. Romeo was right in position and Romeo biffed it. That's a Romeo Dobbs issue. That to me is not a coach. I don't think there's anything that Matt LaFleur could have done to be more mentally tough or have his team more mentally prepared or anything like that. Dobbs biffed it. Josh Jacobs fumbled in the red zone. Josh Jacobs is one of the most consummate. Yes, he's had a couple fumbles here and there, but he's been, the most consummate professional. Lives, eats, breathes football, and he fumbled in the red zone. It just is what it is sometimes in those situations, but it has become enough of a trend where it's a fair question to ask. I don't know. I fear that if it continues again, or if you end up with a big mistake in the postseason, it will continue to kind of haunt Matt LaFleur and this team a little bit. But hopefully they can find a way to overcome it, learn from their lessons, and not have this be an issue anymore. We'll see. We'll come back to 3:05. We need victory. Luigi's on Sunday. Worried about this offensive line on Saturday night, especially if Monk starts at center. Your biggest concerns? Yeah, I mean, not having Jordan Love is still probably my biggest concern, even though I really like Malik Willis. Hopefully, Sean Ryan and company are able to go on the offensive line, and they've got enough starters. Aaron Banks and Ryan are fighting this illness, and Zach Tom's questionable. If you tell me that Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, and Aaron Banks are all out, good night. The game is probably over. It probably is over before it begins. I don't think what are we even doing in that standpoint? Probably Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan, Jacob Monk, Anthony Belton, Darian Kennard, offensive line, probably in that scenario, something like that. Or maybe they put Morgan still at right tackle, put Kennard and Belton in at guard, and then Monk at center. Either way, I think you're probably dead on arrival if that's your starting offensive line. So offensive line needs to be at least somewhat healthy. I don't think Tom's going to play, but hopefully Sean Ryan and Aaron Banks can not only play through the illness, but can play well enough. But we'll have to kind of see if that's the case or not. But I would also love a victory Luiges on Sunday, Steve. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. Matthew, same to you. Odds are Willis is gone next year, and we've seen how important a good backup is. How should Green Bay address backup quarterback in the offseason, draft or free agency? Yeah, Tyler, I'll be totally transparent. I haven't spent a ton of time on backup quarterback options at this point in time. Again, I'll have to take a much better look at what ultimately ends up becoming available via the draft. By all accounts, it's not a great quarterback draft class. A lot of the mid-tier quarterbacks went back to school, which we're going to see more and more of, by the way, because quite frankly, you're probably going to get a bigger contract in college than you are if you're a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick. If you have the ability to go back, you're probably better off doing so. So you're probably going to get, moving forward, a lot of top tier guys and then guys who've just run out of college eligibility. And that's might be your quarterback classes from now on. But we'll see. But I'll have to kind of take a look at that a little bit further as we look ahead. But I do think Malik is probably gone. We'll see what they think of Clayton Thune. That is somebody who I expect to be back one way or the other to kind of compete for either, again, a third quarterback or maybe a backup spot, depending on who they bring in. And then we'll just see what other options they kind of bring in. But I'll have to take a look at that a little bit closer. All right, 305. All right, highlight center. Andy, how do you grade a play that has nothing to do with the player's position, like the Rasheed Walker fumble recovery versus the Lions? So on that play, Rasheed gets a positive for obviously making an impact play, but being heads up, being Johnny on the spot, and by ultimately recovering a huge fumble in that game. So it's not going to necessarily be, my grades are not specific to position, meaning if all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they wanted to line up Rasheed Walker out at wide receiver, I don't have a Rasheed Walker wide receiver grade and a Rasheed Walker offensive line grade. If you play offense or defense, if you're Bo Melton, who has not played defense yet, but if you're Bo Melton, I will give you an offensive grade and a defensive grade, but you just have an offensive grade and you have a defensive grade. That's it. It's not, if Micah Parsons does not get a different defensive end or defensive tackle or off-ball linebacker grade from me. It's just one overarching grade based on what they were asked to do on the play. Did they do it at a high level? Did they do it at an average level? Did they do it at a poor level, etc.? So if you do a good play that didn't really account to your position, you can still get a great grade for it. It doesn't really change anything. It's one offensive grade and that's it. Yep, Love is officially out for those just joining us. Seems like Matt LaFleur gets more creative with Malik Willis versus Jordan Love, pulling offensive line and side-to-side movement behind the line of scrimmage. Do you agree? And if so, do you think he doesn't include some of that creativity when Jordan Love is at quarterback? I think Matt LaFleur does a terrific job of designing an offense that his quarterback is going to feel comfortable in. And I think the things that Jordan Love feels comfortable and likes to do are different than the things that Malik Willis are comfortable and likes to do. I think if he had Phillip Rivers, Lamar Jackson, Malik Willis, Jordan Love, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, John Elway, TJ Rubley, I think he would have a pretty distinct looking offense for any of those quarterbacks I just named. I don't think it would look the same. Jordan Love's offense does not look the same as Aaron Rodgers' offense, does not look the same as Malik Willis's offense, et cetera, et cetera. I think he does a really great job of saying, what do you like doing? What do you do well? Let's build an offense around that. And that's why I think just Malik's offense looks different than Jordan's. Jordan likes attacking down the field. And he gives Jordan a lot of those opportunities to attack down the field, work off of play action, work in rhythm, give him time to buy time in the pocket, throw off his back foot, and make explosive plays down the field. If you ask Malik Willis to do a lot of that, I do not think it would end well. I think if you ask Jordan to consistently run the Malik Willis version of the offense, I don't think that would particularly work well for Jordan. So I just think it's a different offense because they're different quarterbacks that do different things well. And I think that's overall a good thing for Matt LaFleur. Don't get why the media wants to slander Jordan for what he gifted the entire roster. Yeah, I don't care. Quite frankly, I don't care what he got the rest of the locker room for Christmas, and I don't care what the media has to say about it. I don't care about either of those things. It is completely irrelevant on all sides of the equation. So I will not be grading the gifts given out by teammates this year. I'm sure people in the locker room appreciated it. I thought it was a cool gesture. It ultimately doesn't matter at all. But yeah, people want to run with it, go for it. It just doesn't matter. Flew 2K miles to watch Brett Hundley throw 70 yards and still at a blast. You're going to have a great time. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I did too, but hey, maybe, just maybe, all the dumb, idiotic, stupid plays that have happened throughout the season, all the injuries, all the illnesses, all the everything, maybe, just maybe, Green Bay's getting all of it out of its system now so that a 4-game stretch from, January to February can go about as cleanly as possible. Do I think that's the case? Probably not. But I'm going to choose to believe it either way. Love has been ruled out. Yes. And he left out of letting Bisaccia off the hook for Dobbs' muff because the players have to execute. Is that Savion Williams and Wilson both gaffed kickoff receptions and more? Your thoughts? Left out of letting Bisaccia off the hook for Dobbs' muff because the players have to execute. Is that Savion Williams and Wilson both gaffed kickoff receptions and more? Your thoughts? Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, you've had a lot of special teams errors. And just like Matt LaFleur will always say, hey, it ends with me. If you're the special teams coordinator and my kick returners aren't catching it the right way and my onside kick guy is not recovering it or, tapping it out of bounds, and we've got punt returners who don't know how to punt return, etc., at some point in time, it falls on me. I will tell you right now, if tomorrow you said, Andy, you're special teams coordinator, okay? You're taking over for Rich Bisaccia. It would end badly, by the way, but let's just say it would. I would wholeheartedly feel like it was my job to make sure that I was getting our returners to feel comfortable returning kicks and not muffing. If they were muffing kicks and doing things like that, I would say that's on me. We got to work on it more. I would say if Romeo Dobbs, I have to get him more comfortable in that position. No, he can bat it out of bounds. I need to make sure that guys are blocking better up front. I need to make sure that guys know the urgency of getting to the football in that play. If I were in charge of the special teams unit and that the onside kick recovery happened, I would feel sick. I would feel like I'm going to get fired. Like I would probably be going into the office next day, kind of looking over my shoulder, being like, I let the team down. It's not a commentary per se on Rich. It's just, that's your responsibility, is to have those guys ready. And yes, does it make it easier and better if your guys just catch the ball when they're supposed to? Hell yeah, absolutely. But if that guy can't do it, then I got to find somebody else who can. And so, whether it's a fireable offense, not a fireable offense, I know if I was in that position, I would feel like I let the team down as a special teams coordinator, and I've got to figure out a way that we can get better. And here's all of it. If the Savion Williams and Wilson gaffed kick returns and the Romeo Dobbs, missed, onside kick recovery, if all of these things were just one-offs, and they happened every once in a great while, no big deal. I mean, it's a big deal because you lost a game because of this one. But in the scheme of things, like, you can figure that out. But when there have been 4 games, arguably, that you've lost due to special teams errors, there's a common theme there. And I know it, like, one of them is Brant Banks, and one of them is, Romeo Dobbs just not catching a ball. At some point, maybe there is a little bit of victim of circumstance there. But I will say one more time, if I'm special teams coordinator, that's on me. That's on me, and we've got to make sure we do it better. And if I've lost 4 games for the team because of special teams errors, holy shit, am I going to feel like, A, I'm probably getting fired, and B, that it's on me. I'm not sleeping well at night. I'll put it that way. I would be working my ass off to make sure that those issues don't continue to happen. And maybe Rich is. Maybe Rich Bisaccia is getting more out of this crappy special teams than any other special teams coordinator would. I think they're 27th in EPA. Maybe they'd be the worst all time in special teams EPA with any other special teams coach that ever existed. I have no idea. But I can tell you it's still not good enough. And even if I was in that same spot and getting them at 27th, I wouldn't feel good about it. Just put it that way. Video is randomly freezing. Anyone else having that issue? Have not seen any other comments of such, but let me know if anyone else is having issues. All right, clear on Cheddar's end. Good to hear. Usually the blow to the side of the head causes concussion, so I'm surprised Jordan's head-on contact is lingering. Yeah, tough to say what the situation is. Every concussion is a little bit different, but hopefully Jordan's okay and can be ready for Week 18 if need be. Yeah, chances of winning the division are still, you basically, again, need to hit a 4-game parlay, right? You've got 2 Green Bay wins. I think it got harder with no Jordan Love going against Ravens. I still think Green Bay wins. I still think San Francisco beats Chicago. I still think Green Bay can beat Minnesota if they do, in fact, need to pick up that win. I think this probably comes down to Chicago, Detroit. I think that's the big one. I don't know if there's probably not a line for that game as of yet, but let's see. No line for that game as of yet. ESPN has that as Lions 55.3% chance to win on their matchup predictor. Not sure I agree with ESPN's matchup predictor on that one, but yeah, I think it probably comes down to me. I mean, there's 3, right? I think the Packers will beat Minnesota, although again, Minnesota showed yesterday they're not going to lay down for anyone. And I think the Bears can beat San Fran. I think Baltimore can beat Green Bay tomorrow. And I certainly think the Bears can beat Detroit next week. So you just need to get those 3 to go your way. We'll see if it does or not. All right, 312 we're going to come back to. I'm not sure how Bisaccia gets the respect that he does. His press conferences make him look arrogant or that he doesn't have a lot of knowledge. Yeah, I don't think Bisaccia cares much about the press conferences is what I'll say about that. But, when your special teams aren't good, that doesn't help your optics. And it seems like Matt and the players enjoy Rich. Sounds like there's a lot of good, feelings about him in the organization. Does not seem like there's that same feel outside of the organization, which again, I understand. Well, I have to believe he was already almost retiring last offseason. I don't know. I think they find a way to go in opposite directions next year, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. You mentioned NIL when I asked about backup quarterback. Can you share your opinion on college sports and how it impacts the NFL? Guys might not be as motivated since they already got their payday, hence a worse product for the NFL. So I think there's 2 different aspects of that, Tyler. Good question, though. The second part of that is I actually think quarterbacks going back and playing longer in college has the ability to be much better in the long term for quarterbacks coming out and having a bit more experience, playing more snaps, more reps. I think that's actually a really good thing. And getting opportunities for success in college where if they came out early in the draft, their just head is swimming in the NFL. I think that actually has the ability to be a good thing. The first part of it is I cannot stand the state of college football. And I just don't care. I looked today and there was bowls on. I'm just like, I don't care about any of these. I just absolutely do not care about any of them. I don't care about the playoff games. I really do not care about college football at all. There's not like a piece of me that's like, there's a little bit if to start the season, the Badgers are good, I'd probably be a little bit more invested, but they haven't been. So yeah, I can't stand the state of where college football is. I have no issue with NIL. I have no issue with players making money. I'll put it that way in college. No issues with that. I think that is a good thing, but everything else around it, I basically can't stand. It's good for scouting players. And I enjoy doing that once we get to draft season. But outside of that, I just really, really do not care about it. Go Pack Go. Thank you for the super chat. The lack of care for special teams over the years makes me question if the franchise truly cares about winning titles. No, that sounds dramatic. I'm concerned the philosophy will never change no matter who is in charge. I think they care about it more than they did, which isn't saying much. I still don't know that they care about it enough. It continues to rear its ugly head in some really bad moments. It has cost them multiple games this year. I hope someday that they continue to learn from their mistakes. It does not seem that is happening anytime soon, nor has there been a change in dynamic. but they're going to have to figure it out, or this will potentially continue to cause them to lose really key games in very key moments because their special teams is just a bit too incompetent. I hope I'm wrong, but it definitely has that feel to it. All right. Out concussion, already clinched. Again, I think this is probably just more concussion based. We're in, Andy. Who cares? Let's go get him. All right. I'm in, Daniel. Let's go. Do you think the Packers will let off the gas and try to get healthy over the next 2 weeks? I think they're going to try to win this one. And I think if they have the opportunity to still win the division next week, they will try to win. I think if they do not have the ability to win the division next week, they will take their foot off the gas pretty aggressively, rest players, try to get guys healthy. And I think that's the right move. I don't care about rest versus rust. This team has been beat up, illness, injury, fatigue, plague, all of it. They need the rest. Their bye week was early. I think resting in week 18 is probably the right way to go. If they lose this one to the Ravens, though, there is a bit of like, do you really want to go into the playoffs in a 4-game losing streak? So you have to weigh a little bit of that out as well. But for me, I'm resting. Take the 7 seed, get ready for your playoff game. I think that's the better way to go. Yeah, I think this is, again, just not clearing protocol as well. Yeah, absolutely can. We'll see if they can actually pull it off or not. My guess, so what we've kind of been seeing in practice this week is when a player is out a day of practice, they've usually been back the next day. Does seem to kind of be more of like a 24-hour bug that's kind of going around. So hopefully that's the case, and hopefully all these guys will be able to play. But again, we don't know which players might show up with the 24-hour bug tomorrow. That is a concern as well. Very hard to trust the Lions right now. I agree with that. Going to go to Lambeau with my brother tomorrow. Should I wear my Aaron Jones jersey or get a new one? He did get us to the playoffs again. I'm always like, well, first of all, I'm not a jersey guy, so I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. But if I was a jersey guy, I think I'd always be a current jersey guy. But they're expensive, so if you want to wear Aaron Jones, go wear Aaron Jones. I don't think there's any problem. Plus, tomorrow's probably like a coat day too, I would assume. So a lot of coats over jerseys, but whatever you feel is best, W. Bertram. If you could turn off injuries for 5 players on this roster, including guys who are already hurt, who would be the 5 I would protect? Obviously, Love and Mike are your first 2. I don't think there's any question about that. Christian, Zach Tom. All right, who do I want my 5th to be? Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney are both good answers, but I really like the depth of the safety position, so I probably feel like I can get by with those a little bit more. Josh Jacobs is actually semi-tempting, although I think, Tucker Kraft. Kraft, Watson, Love, Micah, and who's my other answer? Why can I now not think of my other answer? Oh, Tom, Watson, Kraft, Love, and Micah. Those would be my 5. Those would be my 5. Yeah, I thought the Morgan start was incredible. He just looks much better at tackle. He had, as Justice and Dusty and Mike Wall told me before I watched the film, and I agree with it after watching it. First handful of plays I thought looked rusty, then really settled into the game, then had that brutal play right before regulation, and that was basically the day. If you take from about snap 6 to about right before the end of regulation, really a day from Jordan Morgan. I will add on top of that, like I said in the grades episode over and over, Bears defensive line sucks really bad. So take that for what it's worth. But I thought overall he looked much more comfortable at tackle. Yeah, he'll have the chance to get that bag and maybe get a starting opportunity next year. We'll see. Protocol is separate from the team. Now, it's possible he could clear protocol and the Packers are still like, no, and want to take extra precaution. Protocol is separate from the team. Yeah, they do like him in the locker room for sure. All right, let's get to our sleeper picks for Sunday. Get them in tomorrow on Saturday. Make sure you get them in for Monday Night Football as well. But I'm going Sunday, Bills and Eagles. We want, obviously, the Bills to win this game. I'm going Josh Allen more than 198.5 passing yards, Saquon Barkley with a touchdown, and Dallas Goedert fewer than 36.5 receiving yards. The best part is you can get 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Get 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. They're available in over 25 states nationwide. I think it's going to be a really fun game. But of course, there's all the games out there that you can check out different options for. You don't have to take my picks. You can go with your own picks, which is probably a better option anyway. But I love getting my sleeper picks in every single week. It makes the season a ton of fun. Not many of these weeks left. So again, I think this will be a fun one. Again, Bills, Eagles should be fun, but get those in for the Green Bay game tomorrow too, if you want to do it that way. But make sure to utilize code PACKADAY. Again, terms and conditions apply, and see Sleeper for details. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. Edgerrin Cooper jersey would be a good way to go. They need other teams to lose if they don't want anything other than the 7 seed. Yeah, so they don't control their destiny, but they still have stuff to play for. Gary looks like he's churning in mud, lost the juice and lost the speed, probably needs to lose 20 pounds. I do wonder if he's back next year, if Green Bay doesn't ask him to kind of change the body type a little bit. It's an interesting question. Would love to ask if Love failed the protocol, was ruled out before the test, or passed and was still ruled out. Again, I would guess that this is protocol related, but I can't tell you for sure. New Edgerrin Cooper jersey, that'd be a good way to go. Like it. In town from New York City for my pack, what's the best fish fry in Green Bay? I don't eat any seafood. I hate seafood, which will be the surprise of absolutely nobody who has listened to me for any period of time whatsoever. And I've never had a fish fry. But I hear Merrick's in Green Bay is where to get your fish fry. Never been in the restaurant myself personally, but a Friday fish fry for Merrick's is what I've heard to be the place to go to. Take that for what it's worth. Maybe somebody in the chat has a better option, and I can't speak to it because I've never had it. Yeah, a lot of that going around, not just with Bears fans, but just a lot of crappy comments. Just block people like that. Don't listen to them. Don't give them any of your oxygen. Yeah, I don't know what the scenario was, but I think I can understand it either way if they want to be a little extra cautious, and just knowing too that Malik Willis can, potentially get them through this game. Potentially most hated Chicagoan, potentially get those wins even with Malik. Malik's been good enough, that's for sure. If karma is real, the Bears lose out and we win the division. I don't care if it's karma or if it's Malik Willis or anything else, any other force in this world. I will gladly take the division at this point. Yeah, very good sign that LVN's off the injury report. Hopefully that foot's getting better. Thoughts on resting Tom and Jacobs now that we know Love will be out? My guess is Tom's not going to play no matter what. If I just had to guess, my guess is Jacobs plays almost no matter what. But I just think you play this one out and then see where you're at next week. And next week, if you have nothing to play for, you rest guys. And if you do, you try to get that division win and try to get that number 2 or 3 seed. So, but right now, I think you try to win this game. Gary's one of the best run-stopping defensive ends in the league, but his pass rush is definitely lacking. Best run-stopping defensive ends, I think, is a little bit aggressive, but he's been very good against the run. I will definitely give you that. We can rest people next week if we don't have a chance at the division. For now, we play for it. I'm right there with you, Techwin. Jacob seems to be on the mend. This is the first week he hasn't been questionable since the injury. Yeah, it is. He's good to go. I wouldn't, if you said all of a sudden like, hey, they rested Jacobs in this game, I wouldn't hate it. He would be the one exception I would make to everything else, just because that knee continues to seem to get tweaked and re-injured and everything. And if there's anybody that seems to desperately need a week off, it's Josh Jacobs. So I wouldn't hate that, but I know that Jacobs probably wants nothing to do with it and wants to play in this game. I am intrigued with what corner brings this week. That was a rough ending for Keyshawn. No two ways around it. Nate Hobbs has been playing better. If you have Evan Williams, do you give Nate Hobbs another chance on the outside? Is it maybe Hobbs and, Carrington on the outside? Maybe. My guess is there's nothing crazy here, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see if there's anything different at corner after a really, really rough end to that game from Keyshawn Nixon. If we make a run to the playoff, everyone needs to raise their game. You're probably not wrong, Leah, with that. Malik can make himself some more money this week for sure. Go out and have a huge game, and more teams will continue to look at him as a real viable starter this offseason. Assume another late round pick for a backup quarterback. Either a pretty cheap vet signing or a mid to late round pick is probably your best guess. Super shoe. Do you think the Lions still play the Bears to win? Yeah. I think they're one of the more honorable franchises in terms of just wanting to win. If anyone's hurt, banged up, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown went out for a game. Like they could easily just say, hey, we're not going to risk any player that has any sort of injury issue, but they'll still play it to win. I really think they will. My conspiracy theory, Love was always sitting, and this game is Malik's audition for his starting gig. I like it. I just don't think so. I think if Jordan is 100% healthy, there's no way he's not starting this game. And I think they probably try to give Malik a little bit more run even prior to the illness with the ones, if that were the case too earlier in the week. But I think this came down to the concussion. Rodgers missed a game with a concussion when we won the Super Bowl. Another contrast to the 27 club thing. We just need a Ravens lineman to get a 60-yard kick return, which would be our brand. Yeah, that's very true. Keep the parallels coming. Love, if healthy next week, he must play. He can't go into the playoffs not playing 3 weeks. I would think he'll play in some way, shape, or form next week, even if it's just for a drive, a quarter, something like that. Love is out for sure, yes. You absolutely can franchise tag Malik. They absolutely will not franchise tag Malik, nor should they franchise tag Malik, but if they wanted to, they theoretically could. I don't think he'll get that much. I really don't. I bet he gets in like the $8 to $12 million range, if I had to guess, or maybe more of like an incentive laden deal. Like maybe it's like 8 million, but it could go to like 20 with incentives. But I bet they get like a 5th or 6th round comp pick for him would be my guess. Should Love call the plays for Willis tomorrow? Rodgers did it for Flynn, and because of it, Flynn got paid. I wouldn't hate it. But I mean, if Jordan's fighting through concussion stuff, I don't think you want him calling plays. So no, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say you do not do that. If it was any other injury besides a concussion, then yes, maybe. Why would they not wait until tomorrow to rule him out? Do they not give up until game? Theoretically, from a injury standpoint, you're supposed to update it if you know a player's out. And if the league finds out that they didn't update the injury report knowing that he's out, they could get fined for that. And if you do enough over time where you do that over and over, you could get other penalties as well. And once it's reported by Schefter and company, well, then you better report on it. So Green Bay did the right thing by reporting on it. Really hope they have a good plan for backup quarterback next year. Willis has been responsible for multiple wins and probably both playoff berths, and we don't have our number one pick. Yeah, they're going to have to figure that out. It's definitely an important position. And if we want to have a real conversation too, which is maybe not the most fun one, Love has been injury prone, is aggressive. I would not put that on it, but he's had injuries just about every year, right? So it's something that you have to be cognizant of for sure. The Fire LaFleur narrative never, ever made sense, Nick. I've said it all along. It never made sense. Ever. It was one of the dumbest things that I've seen in Packers fandom in a very long time. The team takes on the head coach's personality. Mental toughness is a thing. I think, yeah, then that's a good thing, in my opinion. Not every single thing is the coach's fault. At some point, the onus is on the players to execute, for sure. I would say it's above 90% chance that he's gone. I would probably put it at like 96%, 95%, somewhere in that range. There's always the possibility. I would never say never, but I would be surprised if he's back. Not stunned, not shocked, but pretty surprised. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything noteworthy here. Am I surprised at the lack of a roster move at tight end after Fitzpatrick went out? A little bit, but they went with 2 tight ends last week. And so Wiley's good to go. They could go with 2 again this week. And Kennard's kind of playing as a pseudo, big tight end. So they have Wiley, Kennard, although they might need Kennard if some of those other offensive line injuries are a problem. But they theoretically have Wiley, Kennard, and Musgrave, and maybe they feel like that's enough, but they can ultimately call somebody up tomorrow if they need to call up a tight end tomorrow. Thoughts on John Harbaugh joining the Pack next year? As what? If you can get him as special teams coach, sign me the hell up. I'll take that. I think if Harbaugh is gone from Baltimore, my guess would be he takes a year off and then he comes back and gets a head coaching job the next year. I don't think he'd be out long at all. I think he'd have if he wanted to get a head coaching job this year, I think he could get one, but I think he probably takes a year off and gets a new job next year. How do you fix some of the errors on special teams, Ray? I wish I knew. Just time, effort, energy, focus, getting the right guys on teams, etc. It's a convoluted answer. It's not an easy thing. And it's just going to take, I think, the front office to get more special teams oriented players, the coaches to get more out of them, the players to do a little bit more. It's going to take all hands on deck to get that fixed. Have not heard the surgery. Matt said that I think Micah had a kid, and so that it got delayed a little bit. But he said it was going to happen very soon. I don't know if it's happened yet, but it should be happening here very shortly, if not already. All right. Let's see if I have any other super chats here. Do have to get out of here pretty quick. If the Packers made it to the Super Bowl, win or lose, would Jeff consider staying one more year, or any players restructure to stay with this good team? I don't think so. I think if Jeff gets the opportunity to get a head coaching job, he would take it. And I think the players would rightfully take the best money they could get on the open market. Could there be an exception? Sure. But I think for the most part, especially after they make that run, you usually go and try to get your big contract right after that. One more thing. What do you think, if anything, is the reason for the poor special teams philosophy? I'm driving myself crazy looking for answers. I think for a long time, especially under Ted, it was, hey, we're going to draft and develop this thing. And we think we can fill in special teams with randos, basically. And we would rather have Alex Light. We'd rather have Raven Green. We'd rather have Tim Boyle. We'd rather have, Yash Nyman. We'd rather develop players on the 52nd, 53rd spot that could potentially help us down the line rather than add a really good, special teams player. So I think that was the philosophy for a while. And I think it's really hard to allocate resources, in an effective way where, offense and defense is primarily going to win you games. So how much time do you want to allocate to special teams and practices? Knowing that every minute you spend with special teams is minutes that are taken away from offense and defense. But if you don't spend time on special teams, it could be a nuclear situation there too. I think it's a tough thing to juggle, but Green Bay's done a very, very poor job of it, arguably worse than anyone over the last 3 decades. As great as they are at developing quarterbacks, they are as bad at developing and taking care of their special teams. All right, sorry to get to everyone. Try to get to as many questions as I could. I do have to get out of here. We'll be recording tomorrow's episode momentarily, and then that should be up, I would say, in the next couple hours here for members. For everyone else, it'll be up tomorrow morning. I will be doing live pre- and post-game shows tomorrow. Pre-game show is at 4:00 p.m. Central Time. Post-game show will be as soon as I get home. So game ends, I'll do the press conference, and then I'll get home as quickly as I can. I would assume 11:30-ish, somewhere in that range, 11:30 p.m. Central Time. So keep an eye out for those tomorrow. Normal pregame show will come out tomorrow at 5 a.m. It'll be up here in a couple hours here for everyone else. I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Hope you have a rest of a safe and happy holiday and weekend. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.